Welcome to the 3-0 show on the Athletic Baseball Show. I'm Britt Giroli, filling in for Derek Van Riper, here with Eno Saris. We miss DVR very, very much. We are recording this
The glue that
on
holds us
Wednesday.
together.
He truly is. We are recording this on Wednesday, May 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. At about 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I called Eno and said, what are we doing? Come on back. No, we do have a good slate of topics. We're going to get into the Yankees and kind of the surge that they've had lately. Gerrit Cole, obviously a big part of what the Yankees have been able to do. We're going to get into Juan Soto, who had an emotional return to Washington, D.C. and has powered the Padres, who won their first back-to-back game since May 3rd to 5th. So are they starting to turn around? And we're going to get into the AL West, which looks like maybe there's an opening for someone to finally dethrone the Houston Astros. We're going to get into the Texas Rangers, the Angels, everything else going on in that division, which is kind of oft overlooked. So we're going to preview that a little bit later as well. But, I want to start with the Yankees. Obviously, Gerrit Cole, Aaron Judge, going to be kind of the big headliners in last night's win. Harrison Bader, though, did have the walk-off hit. They beat the Orioles, and really what's been kind of billed as a huge series for both teams. I mean, the Orioles, a huge surprise. And now we've got the Yankees who look as of late that they're starting to kind of put things together. Kind of like the vibes that they've got. Gerrit Cole reaches the 2,000 strikeout mark last night during his start. What are you seeing right now that makes Cole so effective? I mean, outside of that one really clunker against the Rays, he's been absolutely on fire. It looks like he's unlocked something.
Yeah, I thought it would be, after talking to him in the spring, I thought it would be, using the cutter a little bit more because if you look at his history, he has given up more homers to lefties. And, he's the guy that strikes guys out and gives up homers. That's kind of been the only blemish on his record. He is using the cutter. He's using it 0.9% of the time. So I can't attribute it to the cutter, but I can say that he has figured out some way so far of reducing the home runs. And, maybe it means sometimes going for soft contact instead of the strikeout. It's not obvious exactly how he's doing that. Maybe some curveball usage. Maybe it's is due to the location of his pitches. But he's traded a few whiffs, in fact, for avoiding those big homers, and it's been wonders for him. I actually think, I don't know if this is a hot take. I think it's him and Kevin Gossman right now are head to head for the Cy, and I think Garrett's the favorite for it. So I think that his play has been good, but I don't think it's a big part of the turnaround, right? I mean, he's been good all year, and in fact, they lost to start yesterday. I think it's been a little bit more. I think of a couple things. DVR always said, like, do we cover baseball the right way? Do we are we too like breathless week to week? And when we last talked about the Yankees, we pointed out, like, hey, they're still above 500. Like, they've had some injuries, they haven't played that well. They're still above 500. Now they're getting healthy. They figured out the bullpen a little bit, and this is more like the Yankees we thought they'd be. Right? I don't know that. There was like a magic bullet for this.
Right. And you're totally right. And it wasn't the best outing for him last night at all. He had to grind it out. He was pitching in game 278. Only Randy Johnson and Clayton Kershaw have reached 2,000 strikeouts faster. So the third fastest in history to reach that 2,000 strikeout mark. I do wonder, how many more pitchers we're going to see hit these kinds of things. And we talked about this a few weeks ago with Kenley Jansen. In the age of guys going 5 innings and, guys' careers just not having like spanning decades that we saw, how many more guys do we see reach this mark? And especially the 3,000 strikeout mark. I mean, is that really kind of an extinct animal at this point in time to you, the 3,000?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look over, the last 10 seasons, in terms of, how many 200, 200 innings used to be a thing that people hit, and if we just look over the last 10 season about how many people have hit 200 innings, we have last year I think we had Sandy Alcantara with 228, and maybe two or three more, and we keep having fewer and fewer. In fact, I think one year we'll have zero people that throw 200 innings. And if you have zero people throwing 200 innings, how are you going to get to those big innings totals, those big strikeout totals? We'll have to think about how to vote for the Hall of Fame, when people aren't winning 300 games, when they aren't getting to 3,000 strikeouts. And that'll be an argument that'll be tons of fun and lots of fun on the internet. And looking forward to that.
Yeah, and to clarify, it wasn't Bader. It was Anthony Volpe who had the walk off yesterday in extra innings to take that first game against the Orioles. When you look at this Yankees team, are they? I mean, the Rays got crushed. The 20 runs by Toronto yesterday, which I don't know how much you watched that game, or saw the highlights of. I'm not saying that's going to happen every night, but we've talked a lot about pitching and injuries as it relates to the Rays. Is there still, in your mind, a division up for grabs here? Especially when you look at how the Yankees are playing, the Orioles, who, if they add just a starting pitcher or two, I think could really kind of become a legitimate threat here. Do you see a lane where the Yankees could take the AL East still?
Yeah, I actually think the AL East is probably up for grabs. I mean, you're talking about a 3-game lead over the Orioles for the Rays, a 5-game lead over the Yankees, and we're in the middle of May or the end of May. I think there's still plenty of time for the Yankees to get white hot and for the Rays to, frankly, run out of arms. I mean, they kind of are going through that injury phase, and maybe Tyler Glasnow gets healthy, and maybe Drew Rasmussen gets healthy just in time. But there might be a 2-week period where they are bullpenning a lot, and they're using openers, and they're doing their best just to survive. And that'll be the time for the Orioles, Yankees, and Blue Jays to catch up. So I do think that's in their best interest. One thing that's I think been underrated about the Yankees surge in May is just how good their bullpen has been. In terms of wins above replacement, it's only a top 10 bullpen, but you look at something else. It's not a number I bring up a lot, but wins. And the reason I bring it up, they had 12 bullpen wins in May, and the second best is 7. So
Wow.
they really have stood out when it comes to the bullpen, and that's important because they've had to have some shorter starts from guys like Johnny Brito and some of the guys who stepped in with due to injury. But it's also important because that's kind of what the Yankees brand is. Awesome bullpens. And I think at the beginning of the season they were trying to figure out who was in their awesome bullpen of the year and who were going to be the studs in this bullpen. Clay Holmes may have lost the closer role. I think he's going to get it back. And then once Clay Holmes is back atop that, you've got Michael King as the multiple inning stud that they've always had in that bullpen. Albert Abreu and Wandy Peralta are really good. Jimmy Cordero and Ron Marinaccio are stepping forward. This is a really good bullpen. I'm hoping Ian Hamilton is the injury's not too bad and he comes back into it. The bullpen is going to be super key for them, and they've stepped up in May, and I think this is part of why it's not just that it's good at the end. It's that I named a lot of names. It's a deeper bullpen than most people have, and I think that's a real strength for the Yankees.
Yeah, and a good reminder too, like how much a good stretch can kind of elevate you. They've won 12 of 15, 5 in a row, 8-2 over their last 10. They're 30-20 as we record this on Wednesday. Third place in the American League East, which is a little crazy that they're in third place.
Oh
I
my
think they
God, what a
would
division!
exactly. I mean, they would pretty much be leading, not the West, but they would pretty much be leading almost every other division. So
And it's
just
it's
kind of
it's also funny if you look at the standings. The AL East sits above the AL Central in standings, and you can actually, if you combine them, the AL Central would just start at the bottom of the AL East because the
yeah.
Twins are 25 and 24. The Blue Jays are at the bottom at 26 and 23. So if you combine them, it would just be the same that it is, except that no Central team would be going to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's crazy. The whole thing is, really kind of magnified, I think, by the schedule this year, all these teams that, just kind of playing each other. You realize, hey, these teams that we thought weren't good, these divisions we thought were weak, are actually weak.
Yeah.
But let's switch gears here and kind of get to Juan Soto and another team that maybe kind of sort of might be at the beginning of a turnaround. Before we jump into Soto, I want to tell you about the New York Times Audio, which is a new iOS app for New York Times news subscribers. It's got our show plus other great podcasts from The Athletic, exclusive shows, narrated articles, and more. New York Times Audio. You can download it now at newyorktimes.com/audio app. Let's get into Juan Soto. We were talking off air a little bit. I was at the game last night. Not his return to DC, but kind of his return to DC, because when they traded him, he came back like a week and a half later. And it was just kind of weird. It was like, yeah, you can't really miss you yet because you weren't really gone. So this kind of felt like, okay, he has returned. Okay, some time has passed. And of course, Mackenzie Gore, San Diego's top pitching prospect at the time, who they got in the Juan Soto trade, started that game. So it really felt like time to process everything. Soto's first at bat, he steps out, doffs his helmet. The crowd gave him an ovation. And then he goes out and plays like he used to play in DC. So, are we seeing maybe some encouraging signs when it comes to Juan Soto at the plate?
Yeah, and I think it's a triumph of just trusting your process over anything else. I was looking at his swing heat maps and looking at April versus May. He's almost doubled his slugging percentage from April in May. And I was wondering if he'd made a real big change. I mean, he is a high ball hitter with a flatter swing, and he's really selective. And I thought, what if he's been doing something with those low pitches? And he has not. He has been sticking to his guns. If you saw that home run yesterday, it was a high ball pitch. He's managed to be selective and drive some low pitches. He had a lower in the zone homer this year, but in general, his process hasn't changed. He's looking for you to miss high in the zone. That's when he's going to do damage. And I think it's an interesting sort of lesson for young players. There's a just a real tight balance between trusting the process that got you there and making the adjustments that are going to keep you there. And I guess it's a little bit easier for someone like Juan Soto to say, I'm going to trust this process. I've been a pretty good player so far. His worst season, he was 43% better than league average with a stick. So I think he's trusting the process, and he's just having that nice stretch where pitchers are missing high, and he's punishing them for it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it seems like he's a guy who plays up to moments, and it was a little bit of a moment yesterday for him. He said before the game, he kind of called his shot to their catching coach, Henry Blanco, was like, "You're going to homer." He's like, "Yeah, I am." And then, of course, he hits a home run. But, he was so good in DC and had really no prolonged stretches of slumping. And ever since he went to San Diego, we've seen like the more ebbs and flows, and he's been honest, and this is the most he's ever struggled in his career playing. So you do wonder, when you come out of that, does that make you a smarter hitter? Do you think, like, hitting your first real big slump and getting on the other side of it? I wonder how much that helps them, that helps their confidence and psyche. Guys talk about hitting as an art form, or someone, I had a hitting coach of another NL team tell me the other day, it's art. No one asks Picasso to redo a painting, right? It's really hard to get into that groove. So getting out of it and finding your way back, I'm wondering if that's something that they can kind of say, all right, I've done this before. Like, it's a big step for them almost.
Yeah, my old pal David Lorilla at Fangraphs, he has a standard interview question where he asks hitters and pitchers, is it an art or a science, and has them sort of kind of go through that process. I would say that from a scientific standpoint on Soto, that there is a chance that he learned something over this time, which is, if you have a flat bat path, you're good at high pitches, and that's sort of what he is normally. But the best hitters are also able to have a vertical bat path on balls that are low in zone, right? If you think of, a lot of different hitters like Cody Bellinger over time, or Kyle Schwarber over time, they've had the reverse where they've been able to golf pitches and haven't had that flat bat path to get the top pitches. The best hitters develop pathways, develop ways to hit both types of pitches. And hopefully this stretch where pitchers were just filling up the bottom of the zone and he was struggling to do anything with those pitches, hopefully that stretch, I did see a nice homer on a pitch that was away and down, not necessarily all the way down in the bottom corner, but down. He hit a homer off one of those recently. So I'm wondering if maybe he did add that to his bag a little bit, and he's convinced pitchers, I can do some damage down there if you leave it over the heart of the plate. And if he just spends the rest of his life spitting on the pitch low and away, I think that's probably fine. Pitchers can't really hit low and away like over and over again. It's much better than watching sort of Andrew Jones at the end of his career when he swung at everything low and away, and it was you kind of shouting at the screen. So I think it's an art and a science. I think the art is how to deal with the emotionality of the ups and downs, right? Because it's such a long season. So it's a theme in our podcast today. How long the season is, right? With the Yankees, you just had to chill out, and with the Soto, he had to just figure out how to stay up when he was down, basically.
Right, and it's so interesting because, as I said in the intro, the Padres, crazy that they haven't won back-to-back games since May 3rd to 5th. The offense here, they did win the series finale against Boston. They scored 7 runs. The offense looks pretty good last night. Very small sample size, but you do wonder, are some of these guys who, listen, this team was built to be a team that wasn't a league average offense. Right now, they're below league average in most of the categories. This team was built to be a top offense in baseball. You wonder if some of these guys are starting to come together here. Manny Machado's still on the IL, probably won't come back Friday when he's eligible, but could be not long after that.
He's a crazy person. I mean, that ankle injury that he had last year would have put people on the IL for 4 weeks.
Yeah, first time on the IL since 2014 for him. He's a guy who, I covered obviously in Baltimore the years he was there, and he just does not like to be hurt or sidelined. And, people can say what they want about his hustle or his effort at times. To me, I'd rather have a guy who I know is going to play and play hurt and be on the field. And once in a while, he's going to loaf it down first base to save his legs. I'm good with that.
It's an interesting thing though, because they'll play worse while they're hurt, right? But Yes,
but
Manny
is a hurt Manny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a lot better than Brandon Dixon. Sorry, Brandon Dixon. But some signs of hope. It's not necessarily there in the record, but if you look just at May, the San Diego bullpen is 5th in WAR. The San Diego rotation is 7th and tied for 6th, basically. So, top 10 for both of those aspects. The bats aren't necessarily there yet. Park adjusted offense 19th in May, but Soto's getting hot. Manny's going to come back. They're going to have the trio of Soto, Manny, Tatis together and rocking soon. And when they do, the staff has seen some signs of life. So I do think this is another team. It's a little bit like pre-Yankees where you're like, yeah, it hasn't been great so far. They are under 500, but they're not, in sort of, where the Cardinals were a couple weeks ago, although they are close to where the Cardinals are now. But they could have that kind of Cardinals-esque run in them once they get everybody healthy again. They can win 8 out of 10 pretty quickly. If they win 8 out of 10, they're back in the mix for the wild card. I think this is a wild card team, but it's also, if you flash forward to the postseason, would it be that crazy to be previewing a series with the Padres and another team where you're like, this Padres team could be dangerous? You're talking about the 3-headed monster in the lineup. You're talking about 3 good starters. I think this is a team that can still make some noise.
We've all been there. You have an unexpected medical expense or you get into a fender bender, but you don't have the money to pay for it immediately. Now Dave can help get you out of a pinch when you really need it. Dave is the banking app that could help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. With Dave, there's no interest, late fees, or credit check. That's more money to fill your tank, finally get your car repaired, or catch up on bills without having to wait for your next paycheck. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get their financial relief that they need with extra cash. So, if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a help helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now or go to dave.com/MLB show. That's dave.com/MLB show. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
Yeah, no, I agree. And listen, Soto was on that Nationals team that went 19-31 the year they won the World Series. Right now they sit at 22-26. Certainly have some ground to make up to get to the Dodgers in Arizona. But I'm glad you mentioned that bullpen, because I like low-key didn't know how good they were. And then last night they gave up a run and they snapped like a 30 scoreless inning stretch. And I was like, whoa. That's a really long stretch for a bullpen, especially as we sit here in May. So they have really, I think, pitched better than people expected, but they also weren't made to be a pitching staff that only needed 1 or 2 runs, right? They were built to kind of hit the ball out of the ballpark, score a lot of runs, and the pitching staff wouldn't be a liability, but wouldn't be, this isn't a Scherzer Verlander kind of a Mets team that's built on the aces.
Yeah, I would take the Yankees bullpen over this one, but at least with Hader and Luis Garcia and Steven Wilson, I think they have really 3 really credible back-end guys. Nick Martinez has been really good for glue. It can get a little shaky after that sometimes, up and down. But Robert Suarez may get healthy at some point and join this and take that bullpen to another level. But it has been really solid. And it's the lineup that you're kind of looking at in San Diego, saying it's your turn now. You guys, if you guys can get hot, we can put a string together.
Yeah, they're such an interesting team, because I was saying to someone last night, the Mets were bad and you kind of understood why, because they were really hurt. The Padres, before Manny went on the IL, it was like confounding almost. It was like, how are they not doing well? So I think I'm less worried about them long-term than I am the Mets, because the Mets just have that age factor. And right now, they go with Tyler McGill yesterday to give Kodai Senga an extra day of rest. They may use that 6-man rotation a little bit more. I'm just not sure how that roster and team is going to hold up, but the Padres don't have that problem. They're just underperforming right now.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you look at somebody who's struggling like Starling Marte, and you can kind of see that, he's now a below average runner by sprint speed. He's lost some raw power, so he's lost some athleticism. I think that a lesser version of Starling Marte is still going to be a pretty good player. But there's always a chance. He's 34. There's always a higher chance when you're looking at someone that age that they don't get it back together again. There's just, people's careers end at 34 and 35 and 36. And, as much as Scherzer and Verlander have bucked that trend at their age, we're starting to see a little bit of the kind of day-to-day injuries that do plague, a 40-year-old starter. I don't know that they necessarily have that starting pitching depth. I thought they'd put together enough, but I guess it's a truism in baseball that you can't have enough starting pitching.
Yeah, the Rays say hi. Yeah,
right, exactly. I mean, everybody. I pointed out that the Cardinals, I think, would trade Tyler O'Neill for starting pitching, right? I think that they're not in love with Tyler O'Neill. They're not playing him every day. They need starting pitching. And I pointed that out to a couple of analysts around the league, and they said, yes, I love Tyler O'Neill. I would love for my team to acquire Tyler O'Neill. We can't trade away our pitching. We can't trade away our starting pitching. Like, nobody has enough starting. Any contender that wants Tyler O'Neill doesn't want to give up their starting pitching. So, that puts the Mets in a tough spot to, do they give up some of these young bats that are exciting, and Beatty and Vientos and these guys?
They can't.
They can't, because
they
need
can't.
their youth, right? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how the Mets get out of this other than, continue to cultivate those young players, bring them in the lineup, and spend money on pitching next year again,
Yeah, I mean, they can't get rid of those young kids. They've really sparked them. Francisco Alvarez, I mean, right now there's going to be a mutiny if they send that guy down. But there is a catching logjam coming soon. But he's literally done everything you want a young player to do. And so you just can't in my opinion, kind of go with, the incumbent catcher, the veterans. Like at some point in time, you got to see what you have. And these young guys have performed really well. I think they've been a
Yeah.
bright spot
There's
for
been some
them, for
frustration
sure.
with Buck Showalter among the fandom
Yeah.
that they should kind of do the youth movement fully, play Brett Beatty every day, play Mark Vientos every day because he's hit the ball really hard. But given you have a roster full of veterans, if you're playing Mark Vientos every day, somebody is not playing at all.
Yeah.
Somebody who has a pretty big contract and has, a lot of numbers on the back of their baseball card. I don't know, probably Eduardo Escobar, but it might mean something for Mark Canha. It might mean less playing time for Starling Marte, and these are really good players. So I I feel for Buck Showalter actually right now. I think it's a fully laden team with a lot of options, and that's exciting. But it also means managing a lot of different personalities and trying to work these young guys into the mix without hurting their development.
Yeah. When I saw them when they were in DC recently, he had gotten a printout of Brett Beatty's like off days. And he said that the biggest struggle with the minor league guys is they're used to having every Monday off. And they don't travel anymore. They like stay at one series, play 5 in a row, right? Get their off day. So, you kind of have to watch the load with these guys a little bit.
There's even been a trend with the top prospects to give them Monday off. We had this yesterday where everyone thought Ellie De La Cruz, the Reds' top prospect, was coming up to the big leagues. And in fact, it was just a scheduled day off because if you give them Monday off, they get a couple days in a row off.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I learned in my running training and something I learned this offseason talking to Casey Mulholland at Connect Pro is that our bodies are to some extent on a 72-hour rest and recovery, especially when you're talking about peak work. So I often violate that because my long run days are on Wednesday and I run again on Friday. And I notice that I'm running fatigued on Friday. I'm running through fatigue. And so giving a guy a Monday off, that gives them that 72 hours where, they get the full rest cycle and they go back to work on Tuesday. I mean, maybe that's to Showalter's benefit. He can work Escobar in on Beatty's days off. He can work some Vientos in. And work on that. But I think it's got to be a little bit hard also to come from the minor leagues where you're, a star. Mark Vientos hitting 333 with 13 homers. Everyone's talking to you about how you're going to be the next top prospect. Think of it like Jordan Walker. Everywhere you go, you're winning home run derbies in the Arizona Fall League, and everyone wants to talk to you. And everybody's waiting for you after the game, and then you come to the big leagues and nobody's talking. No one in the press is talking to you. You have 14 plate appearances in 2 weeks or whatever it is, and you're struggling to find every day at bat. So it's a real jarring part of the experience. And I also feel for Mark Vientos, but this is a big market team, and they had big market expectations. They're second in that division. And in it for the wild card race. So, sorry, Mark Vientos, like we're going to use you against lefties and when it suits us, I guess,
Totally. Yeah. It's fascinating. That's going to be a really interesting team to watch, I think, over the next month, whether they actually get it going or just kind of tread water all season.
During the prime spring season, you need wholesome, convenient meals to energize you for warmer, more active days and keep you on track reaching your goals. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and tackle everything on your to-do list. Factor offers delicious, flavor-packed options on the menu each week to fit a variety of lifestyles from keto to calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and protein plus. Prepared by chefs and approved by dietitians, each meal has all of the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long while meeting your goals. And if you're looking to mix it up, you can add a protein to select vegan and veggie meals each week. With 34 plus chef-prepared, dietitian-approved weekly options, there's always something new to try. Want to budget this this month by cutting back on takeout? Get Factor instead. Not only is Factor cheaper than takeout, but meals are ready faster than restaurant delivery in just 2 minutes. This May, get Factor and enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/deck50 and use code DECK50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code DECK50 at factormeals.com/deck50 to get 50% off your first box. Mudwater is a coffee alternative with 4 adaptogenic mushrooms and Ayurvedic herbs. With only a fraction of caffeine as a cup of coffee, you get energy without the jitters or crash of coffee. Each ingredient was added for a purpose: cacao and chai for mood and a hint of caffeine, lion's mane to support focus, cordyceps to help support physical performance, chaga and reishi to support your immune system, and cinnamon for antioxidants. I love my morning coffee, but I don't want to go back to that kind of caffeine later in the day, and Mudwater is the perfect alternative. Mud is Whole30 approved, 100% USDA organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher certified. Mudwater donates monthly to the Berkeley Center for the Science of Psychedelics, as Mudwater believes the country is in a mental health epidemic and sees psychedelics as useful tools for individuals with depression, PTSD, anxiety, and other mental health experiences. To get 15% off, go to mudwater.com/MLB show to support the show and use code MLB show for 15% off.
I feel like we don't give the AL West enough love. You brought this up in our quick, harried version of what we're going to actually talk about, because we don't have the nice bulleted Google Doc that DVR always makes for us. But listen, the AL West, as it stands today on Wednesday, Texas 30-18. They have a 2-game lead over the Houston Astros. The Angels are 27-23. Even Seattle, they won last night. They're back at 500, 24-24, 6 games back. It's really 4 teams. And then poor Oakland, which is 10-40.
One of the worst teams of all time.
Like 10-40. Is there any other team that doesn't have 20 wins? Oh, Kansas City only has 15.
That's still 5 wins. That's still 5 wins clear of the Athletics.
I know.
The Athletics have scored 3.5 runs and have allowed 7+ runs. Like that pitching staff. Oh my goodness.
That's a 200 winning percentage. You're right. The Royals at least a 300 winning percentage. What's crazy about the Royals is, as we talked about, the Central so weak, the Royals are only 10.5 games out. The A's 21 games back already as we sit here before Memorial Day.
Yeah, I mean they're trending towards some of the worst numbers of all time. They have the worst bullpen ERA of all time. They have allowing 7 runs per game in this run environment may end up being one of the worst overall pitching staffs of all time. It's going to be one of the worst run differentials of all time. It's really sad. And how that figures into the whole stadium thing upsets me as well. But because, I think a lot of people look at Oakland right now, they see this terrible team, worst team of all time, and they say, oh, it can't work in Oakland. And I think that was the whole plan, the plan all along, is to make it look like it can't work there. They don't remember the years where Oakland was middle of the pack in attendance in America. And they were still they were drawing, like they never drew like the Yankees or anything. Like that just wasn't going to be was in the cards for them. But they drew, and they had, and they sold out playoff games, and they had good fans and really good teams, and a history that seems to maybe going the wayside. There's some news out of Vegas that the entire package of tax rebates and this and that and the such, whatever, what the entire package of what the state of Nevada will put together with the city of Vegas is now getting over sort of 350-400 million. And I think if they get over 350 million and they get all that approved, it hasn't been approved yet, so the legislature still has to approve it, and they have to do it in the next 2 weeks. But if that gets approved, I'm afraid that the A's are gone. So I'm putting the A's chances of staying in Oakland down around 5% right now. It's the lowest it's ever been for me.
Yeah, which is, I mean, but initially, remember they said 500 million was what they were going to get. Like it just keeps kind of coming down and down and down. They're just looking for a reason to leave.
That's
Ownership
how it
is, but
feels. Yeah, because the number
yeah,
that Oakland was giving was around 300 plus million too. So it's not that big of a difference in packages. And I'm not sure Vegas, I wrote a piece about it last week. I'm not sure Vegas is actually the best option for baseball. It's immediately the smallest
yeah,
TV market. It's an older city. It's a small city.
a
You know, there
transient city. Yeah,
yeah, there are other cities that are growing. I did see some research too, and I didn't put this in the piece, but team quality is one of the biggest drivers of attendance. That makes sense. Who wants to go see a bad team, right? But that gets thrown on its head a little bit when you talk about, okay, well, we're gonna have tourists come. But do you as a tourist want to go see your team beat up on a bad team? Like
no,
you're like, I gotta go see the Cubs beat up on the A's in Vegas.
no,
I think the team quality of both teams matters a little bit.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm a little bit skeptical. I may be wrong. We'll see in the long run. It seems like they're headed that way, but I'm a little skeptical that you can build a team in baseball on tourist attendance.
Right, unless the stadium is some crazy thing where
I
people
guess
feel
like
like they have to go see
Wrigley,
this, right?
Fenway,
But that
yeah.
takes time. What new stadium has become like a must-see other than the fact that it's new? I feel like Camden Yards was the last
Are
stadium, that's
people,
25 years old, where people were like, "I gotta go to Camden Yards."
but
Um,
nobody's flying to Texas to like go to that thing.
no,
Right now, I don't think
no.
so.
Honestly, it seems like they just built a stadium.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's a
The
new
older stadium
stadium.
wasn't that old. Yes.
Oh, you mean the
So,
old one? Yeah, but like the new
yeah, it
one,
wasn't
like I
that
don't think
old.
people are like, I need to go to Dallas to see that stadium. So maybe
No.
in the surrounding areas around Texas, but I'm talking about like flying. No one's
Yeah.
flying there to see that new stadium. So
No, not at all.
yeah, I don't know. It takes a little while to build the gravitas to be like a Wrigley. You know what I mean? Like that's you almost feel
Yeah.
like you're going to a museum, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Totally. I mean,
it's not even that
yes.
nice of a park when you're in it. I mean, the bathrooms are horrid. The food is pretty bad. The beer is pretty bad. It's like, it's not the greatest park, but it is Wrigley.
Yes, it's the mystique. But Texas does have the team playing really well
That's right.
going for them right now. I mean, Nathan Evaldi coming off of a complete game, he's been terrific. That cutter has been such a big piece of what he's been able to do. Marcus Simeon, they're 7-3 over their last 10 games. Bruce Bochy, I think, has added, and we talked about this on the show before, like that element of accountability. He's such a calming, respected baseball presence. Having him back in the game, I think, certainly doesn't hurt. You're not going to get outmanaged. And they have so far been able to kind of withstand the Astros, who are quietly doing Astros things. I think they're 8-2 over their last, 8-2 over their last 10. 2 games back, kind of, quietly in the distance. You can hear the hoofbeats. It's always the Astros, but I like what Texas is doing. Do you,
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation here where these are two really good teams, and they're hitting on all cylinders. The Rangers have run 8 out of 12, and the Astros are 11 out of 13. So it's like they're both winning right now. They both kind of give you that sense of like, ooh, this could go down to the end. I think if go on projections or whatever, they kind of the projections say the Astros will catch the Rangers 91 wins to 90. Astros
Wow.
Rangers.
This might be
With
the
the
coolest division race, no?
Angels 84, like, and Mariners 83. That seems far off, but the Mariners have had some pretty legendary streaks, and the Angels are just waiting for, now they have some younger guys on that team. Like if Zach Neto ever just got flaming hot, that does change, the dynamics of that lineup a little bit. So there are some younger players in place in Anaheim that could get hot and change things. But yeah, I think Astros Rangers might actually come down to it. And it's, one thing I will say about the Rangers is they've had a really good, a rotation in May, the fifth best rotation by wins above replacement, but they've done it without strikeouts. And
Huh.
if you look at the strikeout rates for Nathan Eovaldi, Dane Dunning, John Gray, Martin Perez, 4 out of their top 5 starters in May, they're all well below average. And I don't know if that's going to catch them at all. They are guys where I like, various aspects of their stuff. John Gray kind of has like 2 sliders that he's working. Martin Perez has that great changeup, but there could be some catch up, and I just wonder if here's a name you might not have heard a while, but he is actually sort of killing it right now. Jack Leiter could get it together and be like this big stuff. I don't know if he'd be a multiple inning reliever guy or if he just steps into that rotation, but Jack Leiter is starting to put together some special numbers in the minor leagues with just really good stuff, not great command. So as that command improves, they might actually have something the Astros don't have, which is the Astros are out of arms. The Astros are out of arms. I think that they don't really, we were looking at their prospect arms. They don't really have a prospect arm that can step in right now. If there's another injury, I think the cupboard is starting to be bare in Houston.
Yeah, it's a great point. If you look at the Rangers and you look at their top prospects, you look at the ETA estimated, there's a lot of 2023s and 2024s. And I think Texas, they kind of planned for this, right? They had the years where they were terrible. They had the World Series runs. Then they had the years where they were terrible. And then, 2 winters ago, they go out and they spend the money and they get Simeon and they get Seager. And this winter, obviously, they get DeGrom and they start kind of saying, all right, this is it. This is the window. And I think the window is just starting to open for the Texas Rangers because you mentioned Leiter, he's their number 4 prospect. They think next year, right? 2024. But you look through this list and you've got Owen White and, you've got Cole Winn and you've got guys who Mark Church, who are on this list, Zach Kent, who could be helping this Rangers team very soon, right? Who I think you look at the Astros and you're right. It's been decimated because the Astros have been good too. The Astros haven't been in rebuild mode. The window for the Astros has been open, right?
They also got dinged a bunch of picks.
Exactly. So,
little shenanigans.
Yeah. You may have heard about that. But it's just fascinating. Are we seeing kind of the power pendulum shift a little? And I also think last year, remember, everyone was on the Angels bandwagon, like this is going to be the year. And then they were terrible again. And now I feel like they're actually pretty good, but nobody is talking about them, minus when Ohtani plays. And it's like, oh, best thing that's ever been done since babe. Like he's always breaking some kind of record. I just saw him start about a week ago in Baltimore, but it seems like the Angels are, finally kind of putting it together here a little bit. Anthony Rendon hurt again, but that's just kind of been the case for them since they signed him. They look like a more cohesive unit than they have in years past. I think they've always had the talent, but you'd look at them and they'd be kind of like middling under 500. They have a legitimate chance. They're one hot week away from being in this mix too. So it's a really strong division. And you mentioned Seattle. I mean, I feel like every time I watch Seattle now, Jared Kelenic or Cal Raleigh do something, right? It's just
and Julio Rodriguez has been cold, and he's starting to percolate. So, if you can put together a 3-headed monster in that lineup, they've always had the pitching, I feel like. And so that's all the Mariners need to do is kind of put together a lineup, while the Angels, all they need to do is put together a staff, right? So you've got 2 kind of flawed teams behind. I think the Rangers and Astros are best, but I like your point about sort of the culmination of the prospect list in Texas and what that's producing for them. Whereas I'm looking right now at the Fangraphs Astros prospect list, and 45 future value player is considered someone that could be a regular, and Hunter Brown's in the major leagues, so Yanier Diaz is right there. Other than that, they don't have anybody that's 45 or higher that is scheduled to hit the big leagues this year. Texas, on the other hand, has Jack Leiter, Owen White, and whatever you think of them, Cole Winn, not all of them are doing great. But the thing with top prospects that are close, even Evan Carter could come up this year and play outfield for them. They've got Brock Porter. So they've got a bunch of 45s and 45 pluses that are right there ready to help. And even if they aren't right now looking great, top prospects, they're close to the big leagues. What if they start throwing a cutter, or, start spitting on pitches low and away? Like they're sometimes one little tweak away from being in the major leagues, and they at least will offer some help if someone gets hurt. So yeah, the Rangers have the depth. The Astros still have their star power. You saw like Yordan Alvarez just going ham. He hit like a grand slam and a 3-run homer, a 2-run homer in one game, and he's still maybe the best or second best hitter in baseball. They still have really good stars there. Jose Altuve is getting healthy, so that they're going to be a formidable team. But in a way, if the AL West has depth, the Rangers have that depth that may be what it takes them to win it this year.
Yeah, I don't see anything about the Rangers start that is a mirage, right? Like certainly they could dip, they could have certain areas go, but nothing about this jumps out to me as like, we're being fooled here by the Rangers. They're playing over their skis. You look at the peripherals and they look good. I mean, this team is good on paper and they're playing well. So as you mentioned, the Astros are coming. I think is it June for Altuve, they said, is kind of the target. So when he comes back, he's a guy who really seems to be the heart and soul of that team. They're going to probably stay right on the heels of Texas. And that's going to be, I feel like nobody talks about this division as much on the national scale, but you're right. Look at those projections. This could really come down to a game or two. This could come down to a hot week or two. Would it surprise you at all if Seattle sneaks in? Oh, he is back?
He's back, but he's not who he is. And I do have one little thing on Texas.
Here we go.
28th best bullpen in May. I don't know. I don't know if this is the bullpen that takes them all the way there. I think they need to trade for a reliever.
Right. That's the easiest thing to upgrade, though, at the deadline.
It is, really is. It's the thing that everybody does every season
because all the losing teams say you can have our reliever, we don't need them.
Especially ones that are not, under contract for next year.
Yes. So if they had a hole of starting pitching, right? Like I think it's going to be tougher for the Orioles to upgrade.
Because
they need rotation help.
Yeah.
Yes. And so if the Rangers say, hey, let's roll the dice, let's get a reliever or two, it's not going to wreck the rebuild if those guys don't do it or if they miss the postseason, right? They're still kind of at the beginning of their window. Whereas if you're going out and getting starting pitching, that's going to cost you, like you said, you talk to other people, it's going to cost you a lot. So you really have to feel like this is it. We're pushing our chips to the middle of the table. Now, the Orioles have the prospects. They definitely have the hitting prospects to make a move. But, you got to be careful with who you trade and how much you trade and kind of do you believe in this team? Do you believe that they're for real?
What if you give up Joey Ortiz, for a starting pitcher and Joey Ortiz is someone's starting shortstop, for the next 6 years? You'd be kicking yourself a little bit.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But like I said, would you be surprised at all if Seattle ends up being a wild card team? Especially if Rodriguez really gets hot. They're only 500 right now. It just takes a hot week to really kind of catapult yourself back in many of these division races.
I kind of feel like, I don't know if this is a hot take or all, but it seems supported by data and what we're seeing right now. And I don't think it's all recency, but I kind of feel like the East and the West will get all of the wild cards in both leagues.
That seems pretty fair. I don't think that's a hot take.
Yeah,
I think that's a good take.
Pretty measured.
But I think that's a pretty good take.
But it also means that I think that those divisions will have juice because you do want to win your division. It is still better to win your division for the playoffs. And so you're going to have a lot of good teams fighting the Dodgers, the Braves, the Rays, and Rangers and Astros in those four divisions. So it's not just going to be, I don't think it's just going to be boring, kind of like wild card, up and down. I think they think in the Rangers, in the D-backs and Padres, in the Mets and the Phillies, if they get hot, and then in all of the AL East, you have legitimate contenders for the division title.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, last year we sat here and lots of people thought that the NL East was over, right? And then the Mets had it. And then the Mets didn't really collapse so much as the Braves went on this historic run. And so you're looking at this, and a lot of playoff teams have struggled out of the gate. A lot of playoff teams last year, this year have struggled out of the gate. Who do you see a team that you're like, all right, they could be last year's Atlanta? They could go on this crazy run and just kind of flip what we think about them before we get to the end of June.
I think the Padres, Mariners, and Phillies have aspects to them. I guess the Yankees too, if you're like, if you're talking about, I mean, they're already 30-20, right? So it seems kind of unfair.
I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, I'm taking the Phillies, the Padres, and the Mariners are combined, for 6 games under 500, 8 games under 500. So that's those trio. I could see somebody coming out of that, because you're talking about teams that are pretty quality and just need to have a little bit go right, and in some essence could get some healthy impact players back, and so there's just some things that need to go right. And I don't think any of those 3 teams, the Mariners, Padres, or Phillies, none of them have had their quote unquote hot streak yet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They haven't even,
yeah.
like, every team has like just a stupid, we just won 8 out of 10 and nobody knows why, kind of time.
Yeah.
And I don't think those 3 have had that. You kind of luck into one of those at least. And if they luck into one of those soon, that kind of changes the dynamics of their division.
That's a great point. And honestly, we didn't talk about Philly much, but Trey Turner, probably in the worst slump of his career. He admitted the other day, like, I suck. And even if he gets going, I think that could, obviously Bryce Harper and his return from Tommy John so quickly, having him just in the lineup has been good for them. But Trey Turner, to me, if he starts hitting like he can hit, like you saw in the WBC and just in seasons past, he can really change what the Phillies can do, I think.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more in depth on him tomorrow, coming on the page of The Athletic. But the TLDR for you is players that switch teams press. You can actually see it in the numbers. Players that switch teams chase pitches outside the zone and swing more with their new team. The good news is they usually regress to their career norms. So, I mean, you listen to a guy say, like, I suck, right? Like, he's pressing. I mean, that sounds like a guy who's like, I want to show everybody that I'm worth all this money. And like, I'm I'm not just like a silly bust that like we just spent all this money on. So like, I do think that he'll settle down. He'll chase less. He'll strike out less. He's one of the top 5 increasers in strikeout rate from last year to this year. And that's just not something that you think of with Trey Turner. Like, Turner makes contact, he's not a guy who strikes out 28% of the time. He's never done anything close to that. So I kind of think he's going to get it back together.
Interesting. Well, I will look for that. And if you subscribe to The Athletic, you can read Eno's story at theathletic.com/MLB. If you don't, you can get yourself a subscription, theathletic.com. You can read all of Eno's articles. You can read all of my articles. All kinds of good stuff on there. Ken Rosenthal, Jason Stark. You really can't beat it at all. Well, we did it. We made it the entire podcast. This
DVR,
is even the first take. The DVR, please come back. He will be with us. The trio will be back. The band will be back together next week for this. But thank you all for listening to the 3-0 show on the Athletic Baseball Show. We hope you have a great rest of your week.